and you can capture a frame from your ATEM. So you have your camera routed through your ATEM. You step out of the chair, you hit the button that says capture, and then you store it in your still store. Then you just crossfade to it.
Okay, I got you.
There you go.
Either that, or you learn that force disappear thing, from Star Wars, right?
Mirrors and lights.
That's right.
Did you see my little video on Facebook?
No, on lights and mirrors.
Apparently not.
I don't have Facebook.
I try to stay off of Facebook.
On Saturday, I was recording a band, and one of the cameras was pointed a side stage to get the front of the house, and all of a sudden they all had their song lists on the floor, and all of a sudden the song list just kept appearing and disappearing like a magic trick because the way the lights were set up. It was really cool.
All right, Jeffrey, I'm adding you on Facebook. I didn't have you.
Oh, that means I have to accept you. Alexander, I accept you.
It's a very long and involved process. It may have to go to committee.
Okay.
Well, the funny thing is everybody wants me to join their other social network. So if you're a friend on Facebook, all of a sudden I gotta be your friend on Threads, or on X or on. And it's really annoying because it's like, I don't want to have the same friends on each social network because I've already seen your posts. I don't need to re-see your posts. So I try to keep it as different as possible. So I don't get that. I get fresh content. And then, of course, I can be, the video guy on one and the IT guy on the other and just kind of change things up.
Yeah, that's what I
hear you.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn just keeps spamming me.
Yeah. The problem with LinkedIn that I have, well, there's two problems. One, the constant spam messages from recruiters. The second thing is just their cluttered UI. I mean, there's just so much cruft, and it's such a heavy web page, and it always has been. And it just loads incredibly slowly. It does not make me want to spend any time there other than just it is valuable in the sense that I've made business connections with people, and I've certainly got, job opportunities through it. But it's one of those things. It's kind of like, I look at it like IKEA. I do my research. I know what I want. I get in and I get out as quickly as possible because it's just way too busy.
Get in, get out. Nobody gets hurt, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, my problem with IKEA, once you get in, you have to find your way out. You have to drop breadcrumbs to get out of that place.
Oh, yeah.
My pocketbook
I've got that down to a science. I know the shortcuts through the showroom.
I went to my first IKEA a couple weeks ago, and I went the wrong way, so I went backwards.
It's very disorienting.
There is no wrong way at IKEA. You just pretend that it's opposite day, and you ignore the arrows.
I walked in and I went through the registers and I looked at the warehouse. It's like, oh, this is not as impressive, and then realized how I had to do that.
Good morning and welcome to Office Hours. This is the show where we answer your technical questions as they relate to media and event production 7 days a week. That's how it works. So let's get into the first question. Jason, what do we have?
Paul Walhus on the panel and from Austin, Texas writes in, Fujifilm XM5 is $799 and has a 6K OpenGate 10-bit video and a new vertical cropping mode for content creators. And then he includes a link.
I'm going to go to Courtney first.
It kind of looks like it's the competition for the Sony ZV with the vertical blogger type camera. A little cheaper, $200.
Courtney?
It looks pretty strange. It has kind of a throwback design to, like a Leica or a 35 millimeter film camera, and it even has a setting for film, adjusting. Used to be for adjusting the shutter speed of a film camera. Only you have your various automatic settings here. The film simulation mode dial. So it's designed to have that film look. I'm not sure if by open shutter you mean global shutter, which would be good if it's shooting video. So I haven't had time to really peruse all the specs just yet, but it looks interesting, and it's a nice throwback design to those of us that used those cameras that used celluloid.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, is it worth upgrading from Cubase to Nuendo? A friend of mine works with WWise for his virtual reality and game projects with Unity, and I'm hoping to collaborate more closely with him.
Yeah, you may have answered your own question. I mean, it's one of those things where, if everyone that you need to work with is using that particular tool, be it Nuendo or Pro Tools, then you're probably going to want to be on there to ensure that you have good compatibility. And I know Nuendo is very heavily used in the post-production world because of it's got more of a focus on immersive sound, Dolby Atmos, that kind of stuff. Alex?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's heavily used. But it is used. I mean, we tend to. I mean, Nuendo's got a lot of great tools, and the people who use Nuendo swear by it. I mean, they just love the product. I wouldn't say that it's a mainstream product. I mean, you see it every once in a while. You're like, oh, you're using Nuendo. But it's not like oh, you're using Pro Tools or you're using Logic or you're using, there's a bunch of other things that are much more common than Nuendo. But it does have a lot of some pretty specific tools that people seem to like a lot. So I think that it's a good product if you have someone that you want to collaborate with, and they have. I mean, Cubase, I would say, is more widely used, but not widely used at the top of the pyramid. I don't know anybody doing heavy work that's using Cubase at this point. So you probably have some, Nuendo is probably not a bad move either way. If you have someone you want to work with and you want to collaborate with them, then what Alex said, it's worth doing. If there's someone you want to work with and you want that product. I mean, that's how I got to ILM is I just saw what they were using in a specific group, and I learned the products, and so it can make sense.
Yeah, and Mickey in the chat saying if you're into game sound, then you probably want to learn Pro Tools and Reaper, and I 100% agree. Obviously, Pro Tools is far more entrenched than Nuendo, but some of the people that use Nuendo that I talk to are very, very passionate about Nuendo, so they definitely have their user base for sure. Next question.
Guy Cochran writes in with, from Seattle, Washington, what office hours T-shirt news shall be revealed?
What
I can
news
talk.
do we have?
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. I'm trying to figure out something wrong with my screens here. We have a T-shirt. I know people have wondered when the T-shirt will be released. Nigel came in and has worked through all the bits and pieces and helped us get it from one side to the other. I meant to bring it down this morning. I'm a little behind, but it is. You can go to officehours.global/shop, and you'll see it there. $20 of that purchase price is a donation to Office Hours. So it's a great way for you to get a cool shirt. And it's the middle logo. Nick Jushishin was doing a demo and he had this logo in the middle of the chest, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. We did that. And so I don't know when we'll do a T-shirt again. This will be available. It's kind of a bit for us to manage. We haven't done it before, so we're kind of working through that. 100% cotton. Someone asked. I don't know if that's on the site, but it's a nice shirt. It's a good shirt. Again, it's going to be on sale until November 20th. But your purchase makes a huge difference for Office Hours. It costs us a couple $1,000s a month to run the show. That's all the stuff that it takes to make this all work. So, your purchase, all the proceeds will go to paying those bills. So thank you so much. Go to officehours.global/shop. Buy early, buy often.
Awesome. Next question.
Alexander Knight, again from the panel and writing in from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada, says, has anyone used the Unity module in Companion? I set it up and it worked for a few minutes and then suddenly stopped communicating with the client on the remote computer. I get a network error, bind, e-address in use, and then 4 zeros and port 20119 in the logs.
Alex.
And you're you're connected via USB?
Yeah, so Stream Deck is connected to one computer over USB, and I am using so when you install Companion, it defaults to an internal IP address that is not accessible on the network. So I did change it so that it is accessible on the network. And then Unity client is running on another computer. And so I've got it. I did have it working momentarily. They were communicating with each other, and then suddenly it just the module inside of Companion was just saying connecting, and it just all of a sudden stopped working.
Because we definitely use the Unity module, but I think that I think it doesn't sound like a Unity problem. It sounds like a network problem. Like there's it doesn't sound like a straight Unity problem. It sounds like it's a combination of Unity and going through your network. Are you on a Mac or a PC?
Well, the Companion software is running on a Windows 11 PC, but then the rest of my computers are Macs. So you're right. It's probably something.
It's a lot of variables.
Yeah, and
I got
Ubiquiti edge routers and switches in here. So who knows?
There's a lot of going from Mac to PC over a network. I think it's probably not a use case that Unity has seen very often. So I think that may be the. I think that if I would love to see if you plug it straight into the computer you're using, does it work all the time? And then I would try it. The first thing I would do is just like, can I use it if it's plugged in via USB? Can I use it if it's on 2 Macs? So I would just be trying to reduce the number of variables that I had and then build the equation back up again. And so, but I think it does sound like a network error.
Jason.
Yeah, it sounds like a port collision to me. I would try Companion Satellite on the other computer and see if that helps.
And Jeffrey?
Yeah, and I'd take a look at your firewall settings and see what comes up for Unity, what comes up for Companion, and maybe just wipe them all out and then start over. You can turn it off, but do it very quickly on the test and see what happens. And because you really need to drill down to where it's happening to begin with, rather than just pulling everything apart and starting over, because that just doesn't make sense in troubleshooting.
Good advice. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in with, I remember there was a macOS writing app tightly integrated with LLMs. Would anyone know what that was?
Paul?
Yeah, he's probably referring to Grammarly, which is the most popular app for that on the Mac. But there's also ChatGPT 4.0, which Apple is using while they get up to speed. And there's a whole raft of articles in the last couple of days saying Apple's 2 years behind. And I don't know what that means. I think that's meaningless because Apple has a way of being pretty nimble when it comes to catching up. That's been their game. They always see what everybody else does, and then they catch up, and then they speed past everyone.
Courtney?
It's not specifically Mac OS, but it will run on a Mac. As maybe you're thinking of Notebook LM, which was there's been a lot of buzz about. It's from Google. It's web-based, so it'll run on your Mac, which allows you to take a PDF or a text file and cut and paste it into a window or load that file into Notebook LM, and it keeps a notebook of anything that you type in there or load in there, as long as it's a text file or a PDF file. And then you can ask questions about it, and it'll use a large language model to summarize and reference all of the data that you loaded into it. So it'll use that as the source of the model that it's pulling from. And it also has that feature that has been shown on a lot of podcasts lately, where it automatically creates a vocal podcast, an audio podcast of the data that you cut and pasted in there, whether it's a bunch of PDF files, instruction files on how to operate your camera, whatever it is. It'll turn it into a podcast, a 2-person podcast voiced by 2 artificial intelligence people, and it's pretty interesting. We tried it out the other day here on the show. I think Alex demoed it. And it has a pretty realistically sounding person's kibitzing back and forth about, how to operate your washing machine, or it depends on what PDF you pasted in there.
Next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Kent in Madison, Ohio writes in, we are a small Ohio news broadcast network trying to find an audience with pushing out live streams, shorts, and highlight videos. Is there an app or apps that would help us push out more content when we don't have a lot of manpower?
Alex.
When you say push out content, I think the question is, do you want to run a live stream that's just pushing out all the content all the time live? Because once you used it on your news network, typically you want it to be available VOD. People don't really want to tune in to most people don't want to tune into a live 24/7 because they want to watch what they want to watch. Now, you could decide people just want to turn your news on if you think it's good enough and it's something that's very specific. You're dealing with local Ohio news, I'm guessing. So people wanted to leave that on. Maybe you want some kind of playlist, playout system to do that. So that could be, there's a couple different ones. We use Softrons on the air. It's a little expensive to do that, but what it allows you to do is build all your schedules out. There's also Just Live, which is another product that does that type of thing. So if you're looking for a playout system, that's what you're looking for. Things that you want to look for in a playout system are things that, and I haven't used Softron on the air for this specifically. I think they may even have a more robust scheduler for this. But you need to be able to have things that are going to play everything end to end to end, but also can hold slides to fill time, so that you don't have to fill everything precisely. You can get to the top of the hour, and there's things that it can basically go, I'm going to go down all these things, and I'm going to loop this until a certain time, and then I'm going to play a still, and then I'm going to loop this, and then I'm going to go out again and start playing the playlist. So it's more complicated oftentimes than just playing the playlist. Also, some of these will allow you to have a live insert. So there'll be a hole there that says, I'm going to look at this SDI port, at this time, and so it'll open up. And for broadcasters, that becomes useful. But if you're just looking for something basic, there's a lot of things that will do basic play out of stuff and loop through those things. But you just have to decide, like, how much control do you want and how much do you want to look like a station? And are people really going to turn it on and let it just play out? If they're not, then cutting up your stuff and putting it in YouTube and on TikTok or whatever other places you want to put it might make more sense than running a looping thing. It doesn't take anybody. You just throw stuff into it. But the problem you get into is that you kind of have to keep looking at it. It's a hot pot, that's sitting there, and you just got to make sure that somebody can jump in and fix it if something goes wrong.
Next question.
Once again, from the QR code, Gene Anthony in Skokie, Illinois writes in, now that we have the Navilens, what other tech will we see from Cameron that seemed too far in the future to be released soon when he showed it?
Courtney.
Well, when he talked about it, I think that was Friday when we had our Navilens presentation. Navilens, those of you that missed it, is a special 5x5 color QR code that is used for navigation for the visually impaired, so they can place it, and this can be seen by their application that runs on a phone, can then use the phone's camera to see these and help the visually impaired navigate through their world with directional signs and indications as to which way to turn to navigate to certain areas. It has, it's much more readable from further away and in a wider angle lens than a regular QR code. So we pointed out to him during the show, and I think he hinted that they maybe have something in development, but the new Ray-Ban glasses that have the camera built in would be a perfect application for this, so that you wouldn't have to hold your phone up to navigate. And it navigates through audio cues played through your earbuds. So maybe an application where they interface it or run it on a pair of the new glasses that have built-in camera would be, and audio playback in the ears would be a perfect application for use of Navilens.
Next question.
Paul Walhus in the panel and from Austin, Texas writes in, how great is the new Small Rig X Potato Jet Tribex hydraulic carbon fiber tripod kit Origin series? Is it worth $799.99? And he includes the web link.
What do you think, Courtney? Is it worth it?
Well, I guess that's just the tripod. I was trying to find the link is elusive. It goes in a circle there, the Potato Jet. And I'm not sure how the hydraulic works. I noticed it didn't have any locking collars, no clutches on the legs. So maybe it has a pneumatic means of extending the legs up and down. So if you lift it up and then let it go of it, it locks. Is maybe how it works. If that includes the head, that's a great price. If it doesn't include the head, it's a little pricey.
Jeffrey.
So how it works is if you look in the pictures, I can't pull it up right now, but if you look underneath the head, there's this little handle, this little squeeze handle. And what happens is you squeeze the handle, you lift it up, you let go, and then, of course, it stays. There's some microphone stands that do this same thing, which is really nice. But when you're talking 3 legs and you're talking on the field, the points of failure become immense. When it comes to the collars and anything like that, usually I can get myself an Allen wrench and I can fix that type of problem. But if this breaks in the field, then you're pretty much out of luck on the tripod. That's the only thing that scares me on it. I like the fact of the ease of use, because that's the one thing I hate about tripods is you have to unlock the collars, pull it down, unlock the collar, pull it down, unlock the collar. In this case, you just put, like I said, you squeeze the little handle, lift it up, let go.
Alex.
Yeah, I think in a clean, I think I agree with Jeffrey. In a clean environment that you don't bang it around too much, it could be really convenient. It does come with a head, by the way, Courtney. So that head's included. You can grab onto that handle and you can open it up. And if you do most of your work in an office and you do most of your work without putting too much pressure on it, I think it'll be fine. I think my concern would mirror Jeffrey's, is that it's a complicated rig. And usually when they get complicated, they get a little sand, they get a little dirt, they get a little something else, a little too much heat, humidity, those kinds of things, and the whole thing stops working. So I think that they make sense on paper. I'm not sure if it makes sense in the field.
Yeah, those are good points. It's, from a marketing perspective, obviously Potato Jet carries some weight too in the YouTube community as a content creator, and I know the kind of product, the kind of stuff that he tends to shoot. So it may have more limited use case, like everyone said here, but it remains to be seen. I'm sure they will sell some stuff. Obviously, there's an appeal when, and it's not just small rig, but, for example, like guitar companies do these artist signature models, and they always tend to sell a small amount of them, but they obviously have their core loyal fans that buy those types of products. Next question.
Gordon Lake in Los Angeles writes in, should small businesses do their own YouTube channel as part of their marketing stack, or is that overkill?
Jeffrey. Your Zoom muted there.
Programs keep opening up. Anyway, what it will do, it does help. Yes, definitely do it, if for anything, to take over the handle on YouTube, so somebody else doesn't claim, like, let's say your company is called Sprockets Inc. Then you have that youtube.com/Sprockets Inc. and somebody else doesn't take that and then start looking like you, feeling like you. So I would do it for that aspect. I know many YouTube channels that have one video on it, and that one video does one thing and that's it, and then they change it every now and then. So you don't need to build up a YouTube channel, but you do need to maintain it, because YouTube is always in this point where it's like, well, eventually we're going to start purging channels. But it definitely can be a good marketing point, and to have it in your back pocket doesn't hurt.
Alex?
Yeah, I definitely would look at it past marketing as well. I don't look at it as just a marketing tool, but also a customer service tool, a training tool, a call deflection tool. Those are all things that you can use with it. I put on a channel one time, my channel, a unlisted link to how to get set up for Google Hangouts. So I just needed something that I could send to partners, like, here's how we want you to get set up for the show. and it got 5,000 views, because they were showing to everybody else and they were using it and everything else. It wasn't public. It never has been, because I felt like it wasn't, I didn't feel like it was a high enough quality to make it public, and but evidently got a lot of views anyway. So I think that, but think about like how to use your product, what new products are coming out depending on what you're doing there, those types of things. It is think of it as a service. In many ways, we think of office hours as, what we leave up on YouTube is as much a service as anything else. It's a record of what we did so that some of our viewers can time shift what they're doing. And we think of it probably less as marketing and more of just delivering the content that we did in the morning in a way that people can watch it.
Paul?
Yeah, I have a friend, Bob, a ham radio operator. He started making YouTube videos about microphones on ham radios and how he could fix those. And that developed into a really great business. Now he gets 2 or 3 microphones delivered to him every day. He goes in, he fixes them, makes them sound better. And he's done 10,000 of these over the years. And they keep coming. People keep sending them to him.
Next question.
Back with the QR code, Kent in Madison, Ohio writes in, is there a camcorder or camera that you would recommend to stream remotely or person in the street other than a phone, or is the phone able to do everything a camera can do with the Zoom audio rock steady features?
Jeffrey?
The only thing that the phone cannot do is be at 2 places at once. And the reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of times, especially if you're just one person trying to get interviews or anything like that, it's tough to have everything on the phone. You can't move around with it. You can't test it. Now, the best part is there's a lot of companies that are making products that allow you to have the camera that the phone will connect to via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever, and then you can monitor it and then, of course, stream from there. The companies that I'm thinking of, the first one, of course, is OBSBot, OBSBOT. They make the tail air is a perfect one because it becomes a PTZ camera, so you can sit on the phone, you can adjust it so you can position the person in the right way. And then with their live software, you can then either record it to the phone or you can stream it out to whatever you need it to. Another one is called eCam. They make the eCam 1 cameras, which I don't have one close by. But then there's a third one right here I've been playing with called Nearstream, which is a little bit bigger. And the cool thing about this one is it actually has an optical zoom in it, where the other ones, they're all digital zooms. So you can have a little bit of distance on here. And all of them usually come with the ability to plug in a microphone and plug in power, and of course maybe even a couple of these do like the OBSBot in this one do power over Ethernet, so you can then connect it up and use it in many different ways.
Go ahead, Alex.
What we see the news organizations do in DC all the time, the international news organizations, is use their phone. So when I first started working there was a crew of 3. There'd be a producer and sometimes 4. There'd be the host, the producer, the camera operator, and the audio person. And that has kind of all gone down to a phone for most news organizations, most international news organizations in the United States. I'm not saying that's the only thing people do, but if you're looking for something compact, that's what they're doing. Now, they're not using the built-in, they're using, a lot of them have been using the Rode mics, the little Rode mics, but, I think the DJI ones are probably better than those. But you do see them clip those on or put a little lav in them and stick them on, and they have oftentimes get the hard rig, the small rig on the outside. They've got a little camera light on it, which doesn't look very good in my opinion, but it works. So there's a lot of those types of things that they're using. But it's someone going out on their own and doing that coverage. Does it look as good as it did before? No, it does not look as good, but they're in a quickly contracting market and trying to stay above water.
And it looks like Kent actually has a follow-up to this. And he's saying, sorry, I meant to add the best way to cut up videos for shorts and highlight video
I think
that we
that's
can
another
upload to YouTube.
I think is that a separate? I thought that was a separate question.
Yeah, that's a separate question.
Yeah, separate question.
Separate one. Okay.
Okay.
Next question.
Gene Anthony writing in from Skokie, Illinois with the QR code. Sounds like Shure Sounds has a Shure SSH mic on their clearance. Is it worth buying? Are these some of the models that are still American made?
Jason.
Well, do you count North America? In which case, I think a lot of it is Mexico and not China. I believe their software is probably still sourced and produced in the United States. Other than that, corporate headquarters is in Niles, Illinois, and no, not really. I don't think so.
Alex?
Yeah, I don't know where it's made. It is. This is for those of you watching. This is what this one looks like. It has that kind of classic '50s look to it. I'm not a big fan. I have a lot of Shure mics, so I think about half my collection is Shure. So I do have a lot of Shure mics, and I have owned 6 of these. Here is the problem with that mic specifically is that when you switch it on and off, it makes a noise. There's this little noise that it makes that that little switch that's on it. So if you look here, there's a little on and off switch here, and it is not silent when you turn it on and off, and it drives us crazy. And it's not a mic that knocks anything out of the park. Usually you buy this mic because you want it to look a certain way. You want it to have that kind of 50s feel. And I think we used it more as a prop than we did as an actual microphone. So I think that'd be my 2 cents. It doesn't sound better. It doesn't sound better than, there's many things at $200 that sounds better than this mic. But it looks cool. So that's what you're really buying there.
Yeah, my understanding is that it also has a flavor of the Beta 58 capsule, which personally for me, I'm not a huge fan of. I've used the Super 55, and other than it looks like Alex was saying, I'm not a huge fan of the way it sounds. But you know what? Some people like it on their voice. So again, this is where microphones are so subjective. You just have to try it and see if you actually like it. Next question.
Kent is following up from Madison, Ohio. Sorry, I meant to add the best way to cut up videos for shorts and highlight video that we can upload to YouTube and Rumble, etc. Thank you.
Alex.
I still think that in general, unless you're really getting into this, I would probably, unless you're going to spend a lot of money on a camera, I would use your iPhone. Like an iPhone 15 or 16 is going to shoot as well as almost any, in my opinion, shoot as well as almost any camera under $1,000. So if you're going to spend more than that, then maybe you can look at a Blackmagic camera or one of the Sony cameras. Like the FX30 is an incredible run and gun, little shooter that you can put on. You can put some stuff around it. It's going to have a short depth of field. It's going to look good. I use mine in the field fairly often. The next one up is an FX3. If you're running and gunning, I would say that I would probably lean more towards Sony cameras than other cameras because you have autofocus. And so autofocus fixes a lot of things when you're one person trying to do this. I think the Blackmagic cameras are great when we're using it. I just used them in a multicam on Friday. Use 6 of them, but you got a manual focus, and a lot of times on that little screen in the field, it's hard to tell whether things are in focus, even with the false, color on it. And so the peaking that they do to give you the edges, it's easier just to use a Sony so that it's especially if you're interviewing people, it's just going to grab onto them and do it. So the ZV-E10 is another one that is possible. We've had problems with leaving it on. But if you're out there doing shooting, just running and gunning, it's a Super 35 sensor. It's $800 or $700 or something in that range. So that you might be able to find that would give you that short depth of field. But otherwise, I would say as an all-purpose, a lot of people shoot with their phones, and it's going to give you some pretty good footage.
Jeffrey.
On the camera side, check out Hollyland's Venus Live. They have it's basically a camera that also can send out to YouTube or anything like that live, and it looks exactly like a camcorder. I think they're going to be coming out with a Venus Live 2. I saw them at NAB, so that's a good camera. As for cutting up for shorts and things like that, there's a lot of programs that are, and it's going back and forth. It's one day one company has a feature that surpasses the other ones. The next day somebody else has added a feature that does it. I'm back on Opus Clip, for example, because now they have the ability to not only do the editing, but you can actually change the parameters a little bit. You can actually send the files to like a Premiere Pro, so you can finish the editing there, so you can get it just right from there. I know CapCut also has some features. There's some AI stuff out there. I've been playing with a thing called Taja, TAJA.ai, which you basically upload the YouTube video, and then it will figure out your shorts and create the shorts for you. So once again, it's an ever-changing landscape. So, but I would check on those and see if those would work for you.
Next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Rafat Al-Sayad in Toronto writes in, "Hello, panelists. I'm currently using Zoom L12 and PodMic microphones along with vMix. I'm looking to improve my real-time audio processing. Could you advise on what tools or equipment I would need for better audio quality?"
Courtney.
Well, I don't know how much better your audio quality is going to be. The L12 is a digital audio mixer, and it has some pretty clean preamps in it. So you can use the EQ and or the compression that's built into that. And this is the microphone, apparently, that he's using, this Rode Podcast Dynamic, or maybe the one that's USB, that has a USB or XLR on it. That's comes in handy. I have the Rodecaster Pro, which has all the Aphex processing on it, and I keep the processing turned off all the time. I don't use any of it. I like a nice clean signal to go out, and if you need it for some reason, like if you have a person who's very sibilant and is making lots of S noises and you have to use a de-esser or something, it could come in handy. The Aphex processing unit that's built into the Rodecaster Pros and the Rodecaster Duo, and there's another one in that line that all has the same Aphex processing in it. Can help you out with that kind of stuff, but maybe it's just better to look at a different microphone that has a different characteristic that you like the sound of better. It's kind of up to the person which you like the sound of. I've always found that adding processing and EQ usually makes it worse.
Jeffrey.
I would take that one step further and not do the processing on the microphone or in the Rode, because, like Courtney said, because mostly what I do is I record from those devices, and then I send the signal to the vMix from there. Waves makes a few different plugins that you can put into vMix. The one I use is the noise suppressant one, NS1, which basically is like the noise cancellation in the Mix Pre devices, and you can do your EQ in vMix. That way, if you do have a problem, you have the recording to go to fix whatever you tried to fix and it didn't work.
Yeah, with audio processing on those Zooms, I mean, you're limited to just the EQ on the channel strip, which is pretty minimal. And then, of course, they have that one knob compressor, which you can also use as well if you wanted to just kind of smooth out your voice overall. Personally, for me, I'm not using any processing here other than just the 75 hertz high pass filter, which is a switch on this microphone to just roll off the low end junk that I just don't need in my voice. But other than that, I'm generally not afraid to use a little bit of processing if I need to, but you kind of want some level of experience, and you need to tune your ears to what does compression sound like and what is too much. So generally a lighter touch with processing is a good idea. Next question.
Panelist emeritus Tlaloc Lopez Waterman in Wilmington, Delaware writes, "And I just got gifted a Sackler tripod. Seems very nice. Anyone have any experience with this brand?"
That's a really nice gift, Alex.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it depends on the tripod. It's somewhere between a good tripod and a great tripod. It depends on what they're getting. So, Sackler is now owned by the Vitek Group. They've been owned by the Vitek Group since the 90s, I think. But the Vitek Group also owns things like O'Connor tripods and many, many, many other things. They've kind of collected a lot of the stuff within our industry that are there. So it's confusing sometimes because things that used to be O'Connor are now Sacklers, and Sacklers are O'Connors, and there's all kinds of back and forth between those because they're all inside of the same ownership group. But overall, the Sacklers have always been, a pretty good tripod. The Ace tripods were the ones that were probably their attempt at a lower cost, and they worked pretty well. You just have to be a little gentle with them. They're about $800. They were, well, when I bought them, they were $700 or $800. I think they might be down in the $500 or $600 range. And they are, they're solid. They were trying to give you a fluid head with a ball joint, with a, not a ball joint, but a bowl attachment. So it was kind of a good start. They are a little sensitive. The fluid heads actually can have fluid in them. And you will find that with an Ace, if you leave it out of balance for too long, the fluid will literally come out of the tripod. So depending on what you have there, if it's a lighter tripod, but there's a lot of Sackler 18s, Sackler, a lot of the stuff we used were the 2575s, which are big heads. These are big, giant heads. But the 2575 is probably that, and along with the O'Connor 2060s and 1030s were probably the most common for us to use. So it just depends on what the size of it is related to that.
And Alex, I imagine that fluid, does that dry up over time? Like, could you use a 40-year-old tripod with a fluid head?
No, once it's gone, it's not there anymore. It needed to stay there. Like, it's not a matter of it drying out. It means that tripod, that head is dead. So it's, it's really important. It's a really important note in general with really, really big heads that you can get away with a lot because they're a giant mechanical. I mean, a 2575 is like $15,000. Like, it's not like a little tripod head. But there's a process that a lot of people don't seem to do with their tripods, which is to balance their camera. So one of the things that we'll just take this as a little rat hole here related to this, because we see this happen a lot. People don't balance their camera. It's one of the reasons that a lot of times you want a long tripod mount or a dovetail. A dovetail is another way that you can slide the camera back and forth. And you may wonder, why are people sliding the camera back and forth? Well, what we do is we turn the friction all the way down for the tilt, right? And we turn it down and we start pulling the camera back or forward until, with the lens and all the hardware and everything else that we have it, when we let go, it just sits there, and then we can tighten it up, and then we can increase the friction to whatever we want so that we get nice smooth shots. And the key there is it does two things. One is it's way easier to operate. So now you're not fighting the camera every time you move it. The second thing is that it puts all the weight of it straight down on the tripod and doesn't pull it down. And so it's really, really important to balance your head. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of times because the inserts that they're putting into their camera are really small. Like when you have a little square one or you have a little small one, but you can buy longer ones that just go into your existing heads, or think about buying a dovetail. And a dovetail it's a long sled that you can throw on there, and it makes it a lot. You have a lot more control, especially as you start to get to larger lenses.
Courtney.
Yeah, the 2575 you're talking about is an O'Connor actually, but
it used to be
your wallet.
The 2575. No, this is
version. Yeah.
No, this is where it gets confusing. So the 2575 used to be a Sackler, is now an O'Connor. The Hot Pod used to be an O'Connor, but is now a Sackler.
2575 was always an O'Connor. I used to know Chad O'Connor.
I don't think so.
Before he died. But Sackler was the video, the video 18, 20s, and 50s, and the Sackler 7+7. Maybe that's what you're confusing. The Sackler had a 7+7, not a 75-25, which was their high-end, their heavy-duty head. And the way that a fluid head works is it has oil inside of it, and as you tilt or pan, as you tilt mainly, it forces that oil through a little aperture, from one reservoir to another reservoir. And so it's under pressure inside there. And so if you have too much weight on it, or you try and leave it unlocked, you don't lock it off, and it has a lot of, let's say it's top heavy. These days, with all the camera equipment, you add the batteries and the monitors and everything else on top, you're raising your center of gravity to like a foot above the top of that head, or the pivot point on that head. And so as you tilt a little bit, it gains more and more force as that weight comes around. So you got to counter that with springs internally, which is what they have on these higher end heads. They have an adjustment that adjusts a spring to counteract the fact that your center of gravity is far above the pivot point of the head. But yeah, that the oil can leak out after a while if you blow the seals on the head, and then you have to have them resealed. It costs a lot of money.
Alex, you had a follow-up?
And that was the power of a panel. Instead of one person answering the question, is Courtney's 100% right. The O'Connor it's always O'Connor. I just always thought of it as a Sackler. I don't know why. Because I think I had it like the 1030s and the 2060s were O'Connors, and I had it like the 2575 because it was a different number. I think I had it in my head that way. I will say that you 100% need to, especially when you spend $20,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 on a head, getting them fixed or getting them updated and maintaining them is definitely part of the process. For the smaller heads, if your fluid head dies at $800, it's cheaper generally. It's less trouble just to buy another one. Like we don't like it. We very rarely go through the trouble of fixing those ones. They usually become something that we kind of tape down and use them in the studio at that point, mostly because they're made with a lot of plastic parts, and it's to get it to actually come back to where it was before. It's never gonna be the same, and so we have serviced the Aces, and they have never been the same. Like you couldn't use them as a fluid head again after that. So we just try to be careful with them. And by the way, question. One thing, pay attention to the weight. It says this will handle this much weight. Adding more weight, and especially more, you can get away with putting more weight on if it's perfectly balanced. But in general, when it says that weight, don't go over the weight, because that's putting pressure on that. That's what that fluid head is designed to manage. And if you put more weight on it, you will destroy it.
Next question.
Andy in Los Angeles used the QR code to ask, is it possible to format a video clip or image to display in portrait mode on a standard 65-inch LCD TV?
Jeffrey.
So the answer is yes, but I think we're missing some parameters on what you're asking here, because are you talking about taking a vertical video and turning it into portrait mode? Most LCD TVs run at 60 hertz. Some run at 120 hertz, which is basically half of 60 hertz, and it'll still work from there. So creating a video if you can do it in 30, 60, you're good to go. And then bring it in there. If it's got some weird resolution like 1920 by 1440, you might see some bars on the video. If you're trying to do a vertical video in there, sometimes what a lot of people will do is they'll create a horizontal video. They'll take the vertical video, they'll copy it in the background and blow it up and blur it and darken it a little bit, so it kind of has a little bit of extra to the video. So those are the things that I can think of, but I think I'd need a little bit more information on the question that you're asking there, Andy.
Alex.
If you're trying to have the TV in portrait mode and then you want to play it full screen, so you want to turn that whole TV 90 degrees, there are a variety of different ways to do it. Apple will actually do that on its own. So you can just say, I want to rotate my entire screen 90 degrees. But what you do is you build your video sideways. And so you build that video sideways at full resolution. You can play it full out and tell the Mac that you just want it to go up. You want to rotate it 90 degrees. It's in the display options. There's obviously there's other engines that will do that as well. But the Apple will do it as a little thing in the display settings. Will turn 90 degrees. And so if that's what you're trying to do, that'd be the first place I'd look.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, and Windows will do the same thing. You just go into display properties, you choose the window, and you say, I want it to go in portrait mode.
Next question.
Jeremiah in Kansas City used the QR code to write in, if you have to use ATEM for mixing 2 MEs as a director, what is the strategy for that? Does a video director often do 2 mixes? Main mix for live streams, second for iMag, not showing wide shots or super source, etc.
Alex.
That is one way that we use 2 MEs, although usually we don't end up using the 2 MEs for that purpose. Usually if we're going to go into a multi-cut, that's, when we do that, we're kind of splitting that out. So basically, you can do what you're talking about. And what you'll often do is cut all your iMags on one ME and then have a second ME that you're either using a super source, not a super source, but a upstream key, or you're doing that. Now, the other thing, by the way, is if you want to do it, you can do it with one ME if you do a downstream key. So basically, you can downstream key the wide shots over top of it. I don't like doing either one of those. I usually like to have a TD doing the thing that they do, and having a TD have two minds or 2 shows they're trying to cut very rarely turns out as good as having 2 TDs paying attention to what they need to do. So I think that's the case. A lot of times what you're using 2 MEs for is to deliver something from one ME to the other. So basically what you have is you're cutting a show, let's say on the first ME. The second ME is delivering the large, a lot of times you'll have, if you think about a screen here, you'll have a large screen and you'll have somebody over here talking about something that they're looking at. This is the second ME, right? And so you can cut and decide what you want in there, and do anything like lower thirds or whatever inside of that second ME, and then have it delivered as a source. That way it's a lot more responsive than what you would get if you were just doing it there. So that's a really common way to use a second ME, but you can use a 2 ME to do exactly what you're talking about, which is that you cut iMag and then you deliver the iMag to the other ME, or use a downstream key and drop all your wides, because you don't want to put the wides into the iMag.
Next question.
Carly, Hannah Stott here in Fort Duchesne, Utah writes in, I plugged my iPhone into the ATEM extra USB port. Why isn't this working?
Jeffrey.
Hey, Keely. First of all, what she wrote is A10. This is an ATEM, really quick. And this is an A10, which is a different type of switcher. Now, that's the first question I have for you is, which one are you talking about, the ATEM or the A10? With the ATEM, the Blackmagic has the Blackmagic phone app that creates a clean HDMI out, which would then go into your USB. If you're not using the Blackmagic app, then you might have problems with that. Or if you haven't updated the firmware of your ATEM in the last couple of years, then you might want to hook it up to a computer and run the firmware updates. So it understands that there is an app that will do that. As for the A10, I haven't hooked that up in a while, so I'm not exactly sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Blackmagic app might also work in that situation if it can do capture.
Alex.
Yeah, I think that I think if you're trying to get video out of it, you need to do something that goes out of the phone into an HDMI output.
Courtney?
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. You can't really go to the USB ports on an ATEM, if that's what you're talking about with an M on the end, are really designed as outputs, not inputs. Yeah, it's not going to take the camera from your phone and feed it into the ATEM. The new, what did we look at? The new Zoom Rode video. The new Rode video does have a USB cam input in it, so it might work into that if you're looking at using the camera phone. If you're looking to use the phone as a monitor for your ATEM, I don't think the iPhone is designed to take video in over that USB-C port, though, so I don't think you can correct me if I'm wrong, you iPhone owners, but I don't think you can use the USB-C port on an iPhone as an input, a video input.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I think Adam Tao's Mix Effect app on the iPad, I think you can get a multi-view out. There are ways to do that. But yeah, you need some dongles and converters to do something like that. Jason?
Yeah, just a quick little addendum there. Respect to Jeffrey for having the thing that I presumed was a typo, the actual product right at his feet. Just well done.
Yeah, that was good. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, what tools would be most useful for experimenting with projection mapping in a virtual environment?
Alex.
We have a lot of people here that know how to use Isadora. So that'd be one thing that I would look at as far as that mapping goes, because we have a lot of people here that know it, and it's a great app. Touch Designer, Ventus, those are other ones that people use for this. There's another one called Aluminum. I can't never say it. I always just keep on going, and I can't find it. I don't know if they're still around because I can't find it. I was trying to find the link for it, but that one we see often as well.
Next question.
Christian in Denmark writes in my experience, audio embedded on SDI decklink always goes bad over time, and nothing helps except for a restart of external. Have you found any solutions for this, and do you know why it happens?
Alex.
I'm curious. I think we would need to know more about your overall pipeline. Like, how are you embedding it? When you say embedding it, are you trying to embed it in the deck link, which I don't know how you would do? What is it upstream, and how are you embedding that, and why would it? Because I'll tell you that I've never seen that happen with a deck link. Deck link has never lost the audio sync. I mean, the audio embedded if it was there. So I'm not, but I'm not sure exactly how you're getting it into the signal.
Courtney.
I don't know if this is related to that, but there used to be a problem with prolific chips, which were A to D converters, that were used in a lot of interfaces back then. And there was a bunch of counterfeit chips, and then Prolific had a big problem with that, the counterfeit chips, and so they changed their drivers to lock out the counterfeit chips. So a lot of the stuff that was manufactured with those counterfeit chips in them will start to Cylon. You've seen this happen on podcasts every now and then. After about an hour, the sound will start going, have this horrible distortion on it. And you unplug it and plug it back in again. It reboots the drive, restarts the driver. It has something to do with the buffer overflow. But if that's the case, you might check your drivers. If you see Prolific drivers in there, try and download their latest drivers from Prolific. And that may help.
Next question.
Roland Booth in Jamaica writes in, Courtney's white, I'm assuming white balance, seems a little off while sharing white web pages. If faced with a similar challenge, how does one fix?
Courtney, do you want to comment?
Well, I was trying to see if I had any kind of special application. How's that white look? Does it look white on my screen?
It looks a little yellow to me.
Well, maybe it's maybe I've got
you got your night light on.
Night. I don't think I do, but maybe I do. I have the color temperature set for that external screen to be a little bit yellow. So I guess Zoom is taking that same screen. No, it's coming through the ATEM. Everything's coming through the ATEM. So I'm not sure where the color correction is going in, and I don't think I have night turned on.
Alex.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that it is. I mean, it's got a little bit of red in it. I mean, overall, like I wouldn't say that it was yellow, but I would. But that's been the case. I mean, it's just that's the look. So,
next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, what sort of processing engines are mostly used for large-scale building level and beyond projection mapping projects?
Alex.
The place that this is the most popular, it seems, is in Europe. Europe does a lot of this projection to buildings. It's kind of more of a cultural thing. We don't really see it that often, and I barely ever see it in the United States. I mean, I think mostly because United States folks that are in the buildings complain more, I think, than folks in Europe. They're like, oh, the Europeans, they think this is cool, and the Americans just call the police. So so I think that I don't know exactly, but Ventus seems to be very, very popular in Europe to manage those projections.
Next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Christian Malmgren in Copenhagen, Denmark writes, in my experience, embedding audio on SDI through external out causes the audio to glitch over time. Have you experienced this, and do you have any solutions for this problem?
Sounds like a clocking problem. Alex.
Yeah, I think that I would still say we need to know what the devices are. So embedding itself isn't the problem. It's probably, the device. this can come back to something Mickey had talked about earlier, is that, poor clocking, poor clocking, poor embedders, those types of things. But we would have to know exactly what the device is to know what that is.
Yeah, and Christian, maybe come back on another day with another question with more details, or maybe even reach out on Discord as well. We can continue the conversation there. Next question.
Paul Walhoos in Austin, Texas writes in, I went to download Downy and the search came up with HitPaw Video Converter. Have they changed the name? And is this Downy upgraded?
Jeffrey.
Downy is owned by HitPaw. That's the simple answer. So that's probably why you're seeing that.
Next question.
Craig Godoki in Toronto writes in, I just got a text message on my iPhone that I had the phone read to me. The text was a photo, and rather than telling me someone sent you a photo, it described it quite accurately. Is this a new feature? And have I just found this out 18.0.1?
Alex.
I believe that is a new feature as part of the Apple Intelligence stuff that they've been adding into it. I don't know if it's the Apple Intelligence, but I think it is part of 18, that it starts to describe the pictures that you're looking at. Apple has actually been analyzing your pictures for a decade. So if you're throwing stuff into photos, it's making those comparisons. If you just type in, I'm looking for a truck, in photos, Apple will give you all the trucks that it can see inside of your photos. Or I'm looking for this person, I'm looking for this. So that's, Apple's been working on this for a very long time.
Jason.
Do yourself a favor right now. If you have the current version of iOS, reopen the magnifier app and turn on description. It will blow your mind. This happened to me by accident yesterday. It showed up when I just swiped down to search. I think they very quietly just rolled this out yesterday because it was the first time I'd ever seen anything like it. And it identified my stove and my microwave and a door. It was incredible.
Courtney?
I wonder how accurate it is at describing people, if you show it some of my family photos, that's a frumpy middle-aged woman holding a very ugly baby. Yeah. I hope it describes things more accurate.
Alex.
I'm going to guess that if you name them, if in your photos, it will tell you that, Cindy is holding baby
that
Jenny.
Very ugly baby. Yes.
But by name, though, rather than
that was me.
A horrible description. So, yeah. So,
next question.
Roland Booth in Jamaica writes in, has anyone had experience using the Mosaic multiviewer from Duals for monitoring internet streams? And he includes a link. Are there any other appliances or services that you would recommend?
Alex.
Yeah, we don't usually look at this many at one time, but this is really designed to look at a lot of feeds that are going out for OTT. It actually looks like a really interesting product. It looks like it, and I'm going to have to look at it more closely, but it even seems like it's something that'd be good to bring on for a second hour. But this is to really look at many streams all at one time in a way that you can kind of analyze them and jump to them and so on and so forth. Looks like a good product. I haven't used it myself.
Jeffrey.
I haven't used that one. I am playing with an NDI program, and I don't have the computer up to give you the name of the program that's using, but I can do up to 18 NDI video feeds to watch and to record if I have enough computer cycles to do so.
Paul.
Yeah, if it's anything like multi-view, which I get on YouTube TV, that's a pretty good experience because it gives you 4 pictures and you select one, then it blows up. And then if there's a commercial, then you shrink it back down and then you're looking at 4 more. And then you can also get statistics and metadata as well. So if it's like that, it's great.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, when a media organization connects to the switch or LTN, what physical connector does the feed arrive on? SDI on a BNC 2110 on an RJ45?
Alex.
BNC. So the LTN and the switch both will deliver BNC. LTN has a couple boxes that will also deliver HDMI, but generally the switch is going to drop in. They're going to either use Mimic, which is going to be over the open internet, which is going to be a BNC out, and possibly an HDMI, but most of their tools are going to be an SDI baseband solution delivery.
Well, that wraps up our Q&A. Thank you to all the panelists for being here, and of course to all the people on the producer end for putting in those questions. We wouldn't have a show without you. And of course, our back end crew shows up here 7 days a week to make sure this show happens, to make sure everyone's prepped and it sounds good and looks good. So thank you to the work that you do. The Talala traversal, if we were to travel around the world to answer these questions, we would have traveled 55,000 miles. That's 89,000 kilometers and 438 million bananas for scale. Let's jump into after hours. See ya.
The prop banana fell out of my hand.
Slipped out of your hand.
The cartoon slipped. It was great.
I think we need more Courtney Gooden sound effects.
No.
Why are bananas curved? Does anyone know why they're curved?
Is this a Laffy Taffy joke?
I don't know. It's not a joke. It's a serious question.
Well, because when they're in a bunch, they all hang down and curve over each other. They make it easier to carry over your shoulder when you're carrying them out of the jungle.
That's got to be it.
Yeah.
See y'all.
See you.